Welcome back. So here we go. Welcome back from the coffee break. Welcome back you at the screens at home. We will restart with the program now. So our next speaker is Christelle Detti from Le Bois du Cassier, who will tell us something about how in Belgium the COVID crisis was overcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm very pleased to be here with you today and online. So my presentation will be divided into 4 parts. I'm going to present Le Bois du Cassier, then how the Belgian government and Le Bois du Cassier dealt with the coronavirus, then the consequences on the site and which measure and initiative we took to welcome our visitors. Le Bois du Cassier is located in the town of Marcinelle in the south of Belgium, in Wallonia, the French-speaking region. In the 19th century, in the beginning of the 20th century, there were a lot of coal mines in Wallonia. Le Bois du Cassier was an ordinary coal mine from 1822 until 1956. At 8:10 on the 8th of August 1956, a disaster happened. In this disaster, 262 miners from 12 countries died. Most of them came from Italy. The coal mine reopened after the disaster. It closed in 1967 and it was abandoned. Thanks to the mobilization of Italians and former miner associations, the Walloon government, and the subsidies from Europe, the European Union, the site opened as a museum to the public in 2002. The full reconversion of the site took 4 years. We have the 8th of August area, where we speak about coal mines, Italian immigration, and the disaster of 1956. We have the Industry Museum, where we speak about the industrialization of Wallonia, and the Glass Museum. In 2006, we created a memorial with the pictures of the 262 miners. We opened a workshop to share our know-how, and we laid out the 3 slag heaps which surrounded the coal mine. Le Bois du Cassier is recognized as a museum and a touristic site nationally and internationally. It's listed as World Heritage Site by UNESCO, along with 3 other major mining sites, and has got the European Heritage label. It is also a member of many European and worldwide networks. So now I will quickly explain the measures that were imposed by the government and how it impacted Le Bois du Cassier as a museum and how it impacted the staff of the museum. So on March the 13th, 2020, the government decided to close the schools, the restaurants, the cultural place, and forbid all the public catering. So we closed Le Bois du Cassier and asked some members of our staff to work from home. We had never done teleworking, so it was complicated to organize, and it was impossible for some staff because of the nature of some jobs, such as the reception, technical activities, or because they didn't have the appropriate resources, such as computers, phone, a good internet connection. A few days later, when the government imposed the lockdown, the management of Le Bois du Cassier, in agreement with the trade unions, decided to lay off temporarily the majority of the staff. As you can see on the chart, I put layoff in quotation marks because it was an exceptional temporary unemployment measure. People were paid less, but it didn't impact their pension nor the pay holiday for the following year. It is in moments like these that we realize how lucky we are to live in a country with an important protection policy for workers and a health care accessible to everyone. So due to the COVID restriction, Le Bois du Casier was closed to the public for 1 month. When the general situation improved, some staff started to work part-time, sometimes from home or from the museum. In May, we reopened with new COVID measures that I will explain later, and the work restarted. Museums were one of the first cultural places to reopen. The Belgium Museum are well organized. We mobilized to open as soon as possible by taking all the measures to open safely for our visitors and staff. The restart was slow, with a few visitors, but it was important to give opportunities to the population to go out and access to culture. In June, the government decides freedom becomes normal and prohibition are an exception. So at the end of July 2020, there was an increase in COVID cases, so new measures were imposed. Each year on the 8th of August, we organize the commemoration of the disaster. This commemoration brings together about 1,000 people. In 2020, we were only allowed by law to gather 50 people. In October, the situation was getting worse. We closed the cafeteria. The staff went back to working sometimes from home. At the end of October, the government decided a second lockdown. The Bois du Casier closed, and again, we laid off some staff, both full-time and part-time. We had to wait until April for full employment and until the end of June for all staff to be back at the office. So this year for the commemoration, we didn't have any restriction, so we welcomed 800 people who wanted to pay their respect to the miners. In September, for the World Heritage Days, we organized our first major event for a year and a half. During these 2 days, we organized 2 temporary exhibitions, a play, and the ERIH event, Work It Out. And we welcomed 630 people during the weekend. The only downside is that the former miners' associations are not as present as they used to be. Given the age of the members, they were badly affected by the pandemic and are still reluctant to return to a normal life. I will now present the impact of the pandemic on the attendance of Le Bois du Casier. In 2019, we welcomed almost 65,000 visitors. In 2020, around 18,000 visitors. This represents a drop of almost 61%. We note that the pay admission dropped by 50% and the free entries dropped by 90%. Different factors explain this situation. Firstly, the site closed twice, for 2 months and 1 month. Then we were allowed to reopen, but we couldn't organize big free entrance events with a widespread audience. Now it's interesting to review the different types of visitors. Our group normally represents little more than 50% of our visitors. So it's easy to imagine the impact when they no longer visit. Fortunately, we note that student groups have been returning almost normally since September. For the 2 last summers, the individual visitors and the rental of audio guides increased. It shows that we had a new public, a new audience, more used to the museum and culturally more interested. As the pandemic deprived the Belgian population from traveling abroad, it decided to carry out local tourism. The number of visitors from Brussels and south of Brussels increased. They usually stay or go to Brussels and rarely go to Charleroi. You have to know that in the 19th century, the area of Charleroi was called the Black Country, and the city had trouble getting rid of this image. Foreigners usually represent more than 20% of our visitors. Le Bois du Casier is near Charleroi. which is not a big tourist city, but the international impact of the disaster and our UNESCO certification gives us an international recognition, particularly in Italy. Of course, in 2020 and 2021, the number of foreign visitors dropped. But because they are not our major visitors, it has not had as big impact as for outside, as Julia showed. Le Bois du Casier lives of subsidies. The staff expenses are important. 33 people for 55% of our expenses. We receive subsidies for this, but a part has to be paid by Le Bois du Casier. So it explains why we decide temporarily to lay off our staff. Since the opening in 2002, our own income increased each year. The pandemic broke this positive progression with a fall of 62%. As you can see on the chart, all our incomes were impacted. When we reopened, no gathering were allowed, guided tours were forbidden. So we did 201 guided tours in 2020. It's 3.5 times less than the year before. The income decreased at the shop, where we sell books, decoration items. At the cafeteria, we provide drinks and food for our visitors, but also to people who pass by, who wants to go to the slag heaps. We have been used to renting out our rooms. This used to be a substantial income for us. Even if we don't accept any type of event, we refuse events where people might dance, for example, weddings. We must always respect the site's history. So even though we try to diversify the means of making money, the pandemic got to all our efforts. Our budget didn't decline too much, thanks to exceptional subsidies we received from different public institutions, from the region, from the federation, and from the city of Charleroi, even if we are a non-profit association and not a public museum. In this last part of my presentation, I will outline which measures and initiatives were taken to welcome our visitors. On the 18th of May 2020, Le Bois du Casier was allowed to reopen to the public under certain conditions. On one hand, there was a maximum number of visitors inside the museum. The visitors were obliged to book in advance and wear a mask. The Commissariat Général au Tourisme organized the booking via a digital platform. The aim was to organize the booking to fluidify the visitors and to pay online to avoid contact at the entrance. On the other hand, we had to prevent visitors meeting each other. We had to provide disinfectant gel in strategic locations to reinforce the cleaning and disinfection of the museums, to put plexi and to buy masks to protect staff in contact with visitors. All these measures are restrictive for visitors and for the staff, but in addition, all these facilities have had a cost of 10,000 euros. At the time of closing, we proposed to our visitors a temporary exhibition on child labor in the past and today. The first thing we did when we reopened was to add a new panel on the link between the pandemic and child labor. Indeed, while the number have decreased gradually since 2002, the ILO and UNICEF announced a significant increase in child labor. After the content, we changed the form of the exhibition. We presented it in a large space to allow better movement. We changed the supports. There were different audio testimonies that we put together so that visitors could listen live to avoid touching headphones or screens. The exhibition was interactive, with letters to read, notebooks to flip through, items to touch, so we simplify all these supports. Le Bois du Casier is surrounded by 3 slag heaps. So we are lucky we have open air spaces. It offers great opportunity for discovery and walking. For the summer of 2020, we had set up a tour with 15 stops to discover the history, the fauna and the flora of the slag heaps. We also promote our orienteering activity on the side and slag heaps, which are safe from pandemic. In 2021, families could discover the slag heaps with a backpack full of items, questions, and games. The aim was to make families independent. They didn't need a guide, and they could stay with their family without contact with outer visitors. We had an application that visitors could install on their phones, which would give them information, offers game, and show pictures about Le Bois du Casier. We have been using it since 2019, but we haven't exploited it all its potential. As we can't organize guided tour, we have decided to use the geolocation in our application. It shows the way and gives information at very exact stop. So it's very useful when you can't use signposts or guides. It will never replace a guided tour, but it's a very good alternative. At the end of the second lockdown, the museum were able to reopen, but the students could not come in because they could not go on excursion yet. As soon as the school were able to accept external people, we decided to propose activities in the school. Our guides, therefore, had to become leaders. They proposed activity around the topic of child labor, linked to the exhibition we designed. So the pandemic has required us to think out of the box. We have to be creative and to take into consideration the full potential of our site and especially our slag heaps. We will continue to use the application to guide visitors, allowing them to choose between a guide and a virtual help. Following the activities on child labor in schools, we decided to propose an activity on the industrialization of Wallonia in school, because the cost of student transport is sometimes a financial barrier to visit. So we hope that visitors from abroad will come back soon, and that the Belgians who have been forced to stay in Belgium will continue to think about making excursion close to home, and that they now know that Charleroi is no longer a black country, but a green one which provides great activities. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Stay with me a minute, maybe there are questions. Thank you very much, Christelle. I think a very brilliant presentation to see how you use the outdoor of the museum for attracting new visitors. I think this was actually a big advantage of the industrial museums, that you have huge outdoor spaces during the pandemic time. Are there any questions here in the room for Christelle? Julia.
Hello. Thank you for the presentation. It was really interesting. You were talking about 2 times layoff for many of the staff in your museum. And I'm wondering, because we are a network of networks, so I hardly get to actually talk to museums. How did you manage to keep the spirits up among the staff of the museum, of not being able to work, of not being able to carry out what they've been doing, of having to stay home? Was there anything that you did, like internally, for the museum operations and staff to kind of not break down altogether?
Yeah, well, it was difficult, and for some people, the teleworking was very hard, and to go back at the office was also very hard. So it was a decision of the management to say, okay, if they can't go home, because I told you we have a lot of people and some don't have job to do at home. So it was difficult to manage that. Some of them was laid off, some of them was laid off partially. And but when the Belgium authorities forbid the working at the job at the office, and when they say, okay, no, it's not forbidden anymore, we all came back. So some staff could stay at home, but they said, no, it's too difficult to manage everybody, to keep the spirit, and it was easy to ask to everybody to go back. So it was quite very difficult for everybody, I think.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions, Katharina, in the chat? Can you use a microphone or something? And I cannot see the chat. Here we see the chat. Ooh, this is me. So, translation for terror should not be slack heap in English, Mark. To muck, tip or bing. Slack heap mean iron furnace waste. Okay, thank you for this correction. Signposting in the museum in French and Flemish, Italian in the memorial room. Is this a question from Sabine? Sorry, signposting in the museum is in French and Flemish and Italian in the memorial room.
They ask if we are our language in the museum.
Yeah. I think the question is about the signpost. Maybe you can open Sabine's microphone for a second.
We have signposts in different language: French, Dutch, Flemish, English, Italian.
Okay.
Because it's the major visitors of the site.
Okay. So Italian is
Italian, yes,
it's exotic.
Disaster. No, because of the disaster.
Oh,
okay. I maybe went too fast, but on the disaster, the majority of the victims were Italians. So it's why we have a very big Italian community who visit us.
Okay, that's the explanation for Italian then. Okay, thank you very much, Christelle. So we have... no more questions in the chat, Katharina? Yeah, but that was commented already. Okay, no more questions in the room. Then I would like to ask our next speaker. Where do I have my list? Here is my list. Sorry. So the next speaker is from 2 million tourists to 0, what's next? Monika from the Krakow Saltworks in Wieliczka. So the floor is yours, Monika.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Monika Dziobek-Motyka. I represent Krakow Saltworks Museum in Wieliczka. In my museum, I occupy the position of the director representative for international cooperation. So my presentation will be a little more different than the previous ones. Sorry for that. We are a member of ERIH for 2 years as an anchor point. And the title of my presentation is from 2 million tourists a year to 0, and what's next? The pictures on the left show you the day like every day in our salt mine, always visited by crowds of people. The picture to the right was taken in the time of lockdown when the mine had to be closed. The Wieliczka salt mine is the most visited tourist mine in the world. The number of tourists rose continually over recent years. It reached its peak in late 2019, when we received almost 1,900,000 visitors from all over the world. Our closest competitors on the list of the most frequented historical miles received not more than 400,000 visitors a year. I think it's Salina Turda in Romania. It's also a tourist mine. This slide shows a usual day in tourist mine. In summer, 5,000-6,000 visitors daily, 200,000 monthly, coming from about 200 countries in the mine. So we can call it over-tourism. What is the cause of this phenomenon? What are its reasons? First, an attractive location and easy access. ERIH is a small town, but also it's part of the agglomeration of Krakow. Krakow is a former capital of Poland, and now it's inhabited by almost 1 million people. Krakow is an extremely popular tourist destination, cultural, business, academic, education center. And access to Wieliczka is very convenient because there is an airport located 30 minutes by car from Wieliczka. We have low-cost airlines, motorways, public transport from Krakow by train, bus, or taxi. And this region is visited by millions of tourists who want to see Krakow and Auschwitz-Birkenau, the former German Nazi concentration and extermination camp. Both Krakow and Auschwitz-Birkenau are inscribed onto the UNESCO list. The second reason is tour operators and travel agencies and its habits. Travel agencies and tour operators always used to include Wieliczka salt mine in their proposals addressed to Polish and foreign visitors 50, 40, 20 years ago. And this traditional approach to trip planning still exists. Sometimes they create offer like this: Auschwitz, Wieliczka, and Krakow in one day. 3 UNESCO sites. Yeah. So this factor is important, is very important, because before the pandemic of COVID, the tourist groups, especially from abroad, accounted for 50% of visitors. Next reason of our popularity. Wieliczka salt mine is the first technical monument inscribed onto the UNESCO list. Wieliczka was entered in the first UNESCO World Heritage List in 1978, more than 40 years ago. And the reason for the inscription was, of course, the outstanding beauty of the mine, unique features, outstanding universal value, and the fact that the mine shows all stages of the development of mining techniques and mining transport. Now I should tell you something about the history of our site, but I have no time. Thank you, Christiane. No, okay. I have to cut my presentation dramatically. What I can tell you that the Wieliczka was a well-known salt evaporation center from the Neolithic time, 3,500 years ago, to the Middle Ages. And in the Middle Ages was known on the Polish land and in the neighborhood under the proud name Magnum Salt. The breakthrough came when the rock salt was found in Wieliczka, and the Polish kings from Krakow took over the salt works and the salt mines. And from the 13th century, the salt mine always belonged to the Polish kings and then to Polish state. Okay, in 13th century, the enterprise consisted of the mines, the warehouses, the evaporation plants was created, and this enterprise called Krakow Salt Works existed for 700 years without any break. And it was one of the biggest enterprises in Europe in that time. Yes. Yeah, you are very interested in tourism, so I will tell you about it, just a few words. The history of tourism began in the Middle Ages in Wieliczka salt mine. For example, in the end of 13th century, Konrad Celtis and Mikołaj Copernicus visited the mine, but such visits were rare, organized only for special occasions and possible only with the special permission of the king. And the king used to give his permission only to noble people, famous artists, and scientists. Till the 17th century, the descent to the mine was dangerous and uncomfortable. Brave tourists were lowered down in shafts like other miners. They have to climb the ladders, walk in the dark. In 19th century, after the Daniłowicz shaft with the staircase was built, the tourism became easier. In the 1774, during the time of Habsburgs, after the partition of Poland into three parts, Wieliczka and Krakow belonged to the Habsburgs. And in this time, the tourist route was created, running through 28 chambers of level 1 and 2, and the registry of visitors was established. So we have 18th century and the first register of visitors. The tour was 3 hours long and attracted people from European royal houses, aristocracy, officials, artists, scientists, travelers. The sightseeing was accompanied by music and fireworks, etc. Yeah, it was a real shortcut for the history. This is the situation from present time. This is how our salt mine looks like. And the mine expanded after the Second World War, reaching 245 kilometers of galleries on 9 levels, 327 meters deep, 2,300 chambers, 26 listed shafts, and 184 shafts. I didn't tell you about the method of extractions. What I can say, till the 17th century, only hand were used. Then in 18th century, gunpowder. Then blasting methods in 20th centuries, leaching methods. But However, the production became from year to year less and less profitable, and Wieliczka salt mine finished all extraction activities in 1996. What was the reason to stop the production? The tourism. The tourism that brought more and more income. In the 60s, the tourist road in the mine was modernized and reopened in 1966. And from the time mine started to be visited by school children, workers, labor leaders of industrial plants, and delegations from brotherly socialist states. Almost everybody of us in Poland remember the visit in Wieliczka salt mine in the time when we were children. The trip to Wieliczka became the tradition, almost a duty. That mine attracted Polish visitors also because it was included in the National Registry of Monuments in 1976, and 2 years later, as I already told you, inscribed into the UNESCO list. When the Polish political system changed in 1989, the country became a popular destination for foreign visitors, and the real golden age of tourism began and continues to this day. And yeah, here you can see that the tourism is in Wieliczka in numbers. And on this slide, you can see the breakthrough after 1966, when the new tourist road was reopened. Yeah. And so you can see the peak 2 years ago, 1,863,000 of visitors, and then we have the lockdown. Here we can see the dates when the mine and museums was closed to the public. Last year, 127 days, and this year, 75 days. Now, in brief, I will show you some pictures from our tourist road. It's 2 kilometers long, 2 hours walk. And what you can see, oh, yeah. So you are buying this is Daniłowicz shaft. You are buying the tickets, standing in a queue, and then you are going down by the staircase, and the tourist route begins. The most important place to see is the St. Kinga Chapels, real church, the excavation from 19th century with beautiful sculptures, underground lakes, and different kind of timberings, ceilings, and crypts, and another salt lake. After 2 hours of walking in the mine, you can have a rest in an underground restaurant. You can buy a souvenir in the shop. And yeah. And another functions of the salt mine is to organize the conferences, events, provide gastronomy, culture, and entertainment. And underground health resource is also situated in the mine. Yeah, but it's not so simple because in our salt mine, in fact, we have 2 institutions One institution is the Wieliczka Salt Mine Joint Stock Company, supervised by the Ministry of Industry, and the second is our Krakow Saltworks Museums. The owner of our museum is the Ministry of Culture. So two institutions in one salt mine, and sometimes it causes a problem. In brief, our Saltworks Museum in Wieliczka was established in 1951. So this year we celebrate the 70 years of our existence. This is the founder of our museum, Alphonse Długosz, who, in brief, he anticipated his time because he spent a lot of time in excavations that has to be liquidated to collect old equipment, and he saved a lot of mining machines, wooden hoisting machines, very valuable from total destruction. Yes, this is the inauguration of the museums in 1966. This is the same year when the tourist route in the mine was open. Yeah, and this is the museum's route. 1.5 kilometers, 1 hour walk. What you can see is the original equipment from the mine. The most valuable collection is the collection of horse-powered wooden hoisting machines from 18th, 19th centuries. And this collection was the reason to also to inscribe the Wieliczka salt mine into the UNESCO list. Yeah, now you can see beautiful excavations. And this is the Saltwork Castle, the beginning in the 13th century, and now is the seat of our museums. The most interesting thing to see for tourists is the exhibition of salt cellars. We have the biggest collection of the salt cellars in the world. Some of them are very, very valuable. And what is our mission? We are the museum, so our mission is to collecting cultural goods, making them available. Yeah, so as every museum, we organize, we have permanent exhibitions, temporary exhibitions, but it wasn't so simple during the COVID time because the museum was closed. So even if we, for example, we opened very interesting exhibitions, but we couldn't show this exhibition to the tourists because of the lockdown. So we had the idea to make it virtual, and in this way people could see what we've made. Yeah, this is the 17th anniversary of the Krakow Saltworks Museum and other exhibitions, and online only. I would like to share this fact that we celebrate our anniversary and say something about it to our friends worldwide. That's why we make a movie about this exposition. Yes, this is what we do in normal time. We rent our exhibits and expositions to other Polish museums and abroad. We organize a salt feast. And in 2 years ago, we had 20,000 of visitors from Wieliczka and Krakow. Very popular feast. And this is what we would like to share with other sites abroad. We cooperate with Sailline in Slovakia, Solivar, and the idea is that our people from our historical department, the team is going there and perform different things, and the representative of the Solivar coming to our side and do they say. So we exchanged. And the same we would like to do with Anyana. 2 years ago we started to talk about it, and maybe, yeah, it's high time to go back to this discussions. Of course, we have very strong, we employ 100 people, and we have very strong education department. So we have a lot of activities for children, young families, seniors, and normally it looks like this. We conduct our activities in Salford Castles, in Mine, and the groups of children from school are very interested. You have it a lot. But in COVID time, our education department has to invent something interesting, something different for him to let them participate in these activities. So we make the serial movies, experts from home, free online lessons. Yeah, but what I'm involved, the international cooperation. From 6 years, for last 6 years, the international cooperations was our main goal, and we established cooperations with different institutions, associations in the world, UNESCO. It's obvious, and we entered in ICOM and in ICOM Simuset. TIKI, ERIH, ICOMOS, Mining History Association. Maybe you heard about them or maybe not. They are in the USA, Australasian Mining History Association in Australia, and National Association of Mining History Organization in UK. Each year, those associations organize a very interesting conference, and we participated before the lockdown. Yeah, 2 minutes. Okay. The membership in TIKI, you all know what is TIKI, so I don't need to tell you what is it about. But they organize international TIKI, and our Polish TIKI organize very interesting meetings. Then we discuss different problems related to the conservation and preservation of technical heritage. Yeah, we participate in conferences, workshops, meetings. Yeah, I have no time to tell about it, but on the occasions of being in every conference like this one in Belgium, we try to visit historical mines, mining museum and mines, because we are focused on this heritage. For example, this is during the ICOM conference in Kyoto in Japan 2 years ago. Me and my colleagues, we visited the interesting mines in Japan. And during the conference in Australia of this historical society, we took the opportunity and visited very interesting tourist mines in Australia, gold mines and opal mines, something new. the investments and everything what they make is very, very impressive, because they invest a lot of money in mining heritage, which is of course very strong in Australia. And the conferences, of course, during the lockdown, all our plans to participate, to go abroad, to discuss, to make projects were broken. And from this years, we started to do it again. So this is the conference in Bubka that Adam mentioned 1 week ago. Yeah, international projects. If I would have more time, I would add more. So, okay, this is the Salt Feast in Slovakia. You can see our staff in special historical uniforms. And another idea is to make the board exhibitions abroad and to exchange these exhibitions. Next year we will make it in Romania with Romanian salt mines. So we will prepare the board exhibition presenting our side, and I hope they will prepare the same and to show in our castle. Revamp our exhibits and entire exhibitions abroad, and we visit, meet, exchange our experiences. France, Swiss, Spain, USA. And so in the COVID time, we couldn't travel, but finally we can visiting again. And this is our visit that we made 3 days ago in Schieferstollen, Blenny Mine. And 2 days ago, famous flint mines in Spain. Sometimes it's a real challenge and experience. You can see my boss going down to the shafts. And 1 minute. The most important thing is the International Conference of Mining and Underground Museums. The motto of this event is, let's meet and share our experiences, because we invite the managers of the mining sites, and we mix academia with practitioners. It's a 4 days event. The last one we organized 3 years ago in November, and it was very successful. We had about 100 participants from 18 countries, even from the USA. But who came? The people from the place that we visited before. Because it's impossible to attract people to participate, to pay and come before getting up. And
So.
I will finish in this way. Oh, this is the picture from the conference. Yeah.
I think, Monica, you have to invite us for a conference to Village-ka, because it's so much to see and so much to tell.
Feel invited, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this presentation. Yeah, just stay here for a question. Are there any questions to Monica at the moment? Not from for here. Anything online? Okay, thank you very much. I think one of the next ERIH conferences should be in Village-ka. I mean, there's so much to see. Health center, underground, and convention center, so everything should be fine. Okay. Thank you very much.
I will tell you more.
Okay, I'm sure you will. Okay, so the last presentation before our lunch break is an online presentation again. It's from Germany, it's from the Berliner Unterwelten, New Digital Underground, podcast, radio guided tours. And we have 3 speakers, Aranka Hanneke, Eva Westphal, and Sascha Kyle, who will present I'm not sure who went on the virtual tour last night, but of course, I think we get now an insight into new offers. Hello to Berlin, and good to see you. And the floor is yours now. You can start your presentation.
Thank you. Hopefully you can understand us. We just have one microphone. So yeah, I am Aranka. I am head of the project of the virtual tours. My name is Eva Westphal, and Sascha Keil and me, we work for the public relations department of our association, and I especially take care of the external perception of our company, and through social media channels and the homepage and newsletter and so on. And yeah, Sascha.
Me too, part of the public relation team and founder of our radio since last year, broadcasting.
So what we will do now, we have a little presentation. I will share our screen. First of all, who are we? The Berliner Unterwelten e.V., or Berlin Underworlds Association, is an association that researches Berlin history via underground urban structures. We try to make them accessible for the public, and actually started our tours shortly after we were founded in 1999. And we started quite small with just, not with these bunkers, but with one tour, and now we have more than 10 buildings under our hands, and we do a lot of tours in different languages. Two of the buildings we show are part of ERIH. The first one is the AEG tunnel, AEG, the General Electricity Society. This tunnel was built in 1883-84 to connect two factories, and is kind of the prototype for the Berlin Underground, actually. And the second building that is part of the route is the Fichte Bunker, which was originally built as a gas holder from the municipal gas works, and was built into a bunker in 1941-42. These are the two ones that are actually part of the European Route of Industrial Heritage. Everything we did until the pandemic was quite analog. So we offered tours on site. We had a guide, we had an assistant, and the group was walking through. And that was about everything we had so far. We did have a web page that was actually renewed in 2017. I can show you if you want to. If I find, I'm very quick. So that's our web page, and the new web page we have. We had a YouTube that was hardly used. We had 4 videos up in the last 4 years, and we hardly used Twitter or Facebook. It was there, but it wasn't necessary to use it, and therefore it wasn't that much. So the pandemic hit, and we had to do something, and we start with what Sascha started with. YouTube, sure.
Yeah. Our YouTube channel was sleeping over the years, and reactivated in the early months of this year, especially from February to June. We had our activities on this channel increased, and we through this numbers of visitors at the channel from some 10,000 to 8-something million visitors in a relatively short time. It exploded, we can say. And still we use an internal channel to inform our members, to broadcast events, to strengthen the inner bond of our association between the members and to inform our visitors. And many comments say us that the people watching these channels want to visit us, to buy a ticket and to support us after the restart of our tours. So we still use this channel, but some energy and the most time goes again in the classic analog tour. So it's a question of time.
The next thing we started actually quite at the start of the whole pandemic, when we had to close, as an idea for our members, was the radio.
Yeah, Radio Unterwelten started, was launched in May, 10th May of the last year. And it started with 1 or 2 members and me as a founder and Daniel Sturm. And now we are editor's office of around 10 presenters, reporters in the field. And we work on, we divided in our personal interests in special topics, in cooperation networks with other associations and institutions, museums. We interview experts all around the world and the university landscape, and it's developed. We have about 1,000 listeners a week. The program is changing every 2 weeks, but it's still in German language. So you're invited to visit this address. It's free, and all over the world you can receive it over internet accessing devices, and from mobile to PC. And you are also invited to ask questions to me or to radio at berliner-unterwelten.de.
Okay. Yeah, we reactivated Twitter and Facebook, which is quite active at the moment. We try to show what we do, to show the world that we're there again. But the biggest project, at least for me, were the virtual tours. I got an idea from an online comedy show via Zoom, where the comedian just shared the screen, and this wasn't actually not new for me, but to have that not as part of education, but just for leisure time, I thought, okay, this is perfect for us. We can do the same. In the past, we didn't think that much about online tours, because the idea always was, okay, there's a guide talking inside of the buildings and there's someone with a camera just following him. And that's not what we wanted to do. So we wanted to have an exchange between the guide and the audience. So a video wouldn't be the same, but we can't go through bunkers from 1940 with a camera and just broadcast that. So there was a big problem with that. And I got this idea that we can basically have videos or pictures that we can show, and just like we do now, we just share the screen. We still have a guide that is talking. We still have the possibilities for the people to ask questions. The guide can go back and forth in pictures. So on a normal tour, if you have been there yesterday, we start in front of the underground entrance, just like the presence tours, and we can show not just normal photos, but we can show historical photos that we every now and then don't even have on the tours to explain things. And the biggest part of the virtual tours are the 360-degree panoramas. This is like one the ones on the tour already know that, so we can have a look down to the platform of the underground, and then we can have a look around. You can see one door, and I can talk about what we see and what it means, and just, yeah, go around and have a look into the structures. So we mix that We still have a guide token. We can have a look around. It's the guide who shows the people, so it's not the same as being inside of the buildings, but it is very close. And we can have a look at the ceiling. I can talk about everything in the room, can show that. And well, we have a few possibilities with these, like switching off the lights with this one, just with the next picture. So this gives at least an idea of what we usually do. And in times of the pandemic, especially when we were completely closed and we didn't have any possibility to show what we do and show the buildings we have, this was our idea. We still have that. We still offer these tours because we have a lot of possibilities we usually don't have. Like we can show this bunker, for example, the flag tower. This tour is for people that are 18 years or older. You can see it's a blown up ruin, so we have to be careful. Therefore, children are not allowed. But with these virtual tours, we can show them. We can at least try to show what this building looks like. We can show these things to people that can't come to Berlin. Like the trip to Berlin, even if it is just a weekend, it's quite expensive. Yeah, this tour is closed from November to March. We can show that in the winter time with this as well. So there are a lot of possibilities. Physically impaired people can come to us now and we can show them. They can learn about what we try to teach the people. Without actually being in there, because it is not possible. But this opens up these spaces that we have. We do have a few problems, like this needs a lot of technology. We needed a microphone, a good camera for the guide. We needed those pictures. This all took a lot of time. We were very lucky that we have a lot of members who do that in their free time for free. A lot of things we have here are coming from members because we didn't have the money to buy them. And not everything translates in these panoramas. This is the best example. This is the room we usually show on our tour about the breweries in Berlin, or they were the first ones who started digging deeper than just a cellar. So it's very interesting topic, but you can see the room is just not good to show that in a panorama like this. So we really have to have a look around. How do we show certain topics? The AEG tunnel, for example, is really, really great structure when you walk through, but with a 360-degree panorama, you can't show that, and therefore it doesn't offer itself for a virtual tour. The Fichte bunker there is the next one we really want to do as a virtual tour. And we don't have that many visitors, which is really sad, because as you can see from comments from visitors that have been there, they really like the tours. We had a lot of people who were actually doing all of them. We have 3 now, because they really liked the first one and wanted to see all the others. We are a small team, but yeah, we try to push it further. Our problem is, how do we show the people that we have that and the possibilities it gives? Like, we can show this to school groups, just like we are presenting this now. We could do that for a class during a lesson. So that's our biggest problem, getting these tourists to know. We use a lot of Facebook and Instagram, but yeah, it's really hard when you try to show that without having the money to actually advertise it the way you would want to do it. Yeah, that's that. I try to keep it as short as possible. Are there questions so far?
Thank you very much for the presentation, Aranka, and your colleagues. I think it's very interesting. I have a question. The people pay for the tours, is this right?
Yeah, they are $9.50.
Okay.
We pay the guides. We need some money. First, it was the idea that maybe when we are not allowed to open, we can get at least a bit of money with these tours. Yeah, we still like it because it has a lot of possibilities. Right now, it's not paying that much.
Okay. So if I book a normal tour, a guided tour physical on site, is it the same price as the virtual tour, or is it more expensive or cheaper? No.
No, a normal tour, a 90-minute tour is 15 euros.
Okay.
A 2-hour tour, 18, so it is much less.
Okay. Good. So any other questions here from the floor? Not here in the room. Katharina, what is in the chat?